O Shenandoah is a traditional American folk song of uncertain origin, dating at least to the early 19th century. The song appears to have originated with Canadian and American voyageurs or fur traders traveling down the Missouri River in canoes, and has developed several different sets of lyrics. Some lyrics refer to the Native American chief Shenandoah, and a canoe-going trader who wants to marry his daughter. By the mid-1800s, versions of the song had become a sea shanty heard or sung by sailors in various parts of the world. The song is number 324 in the Roud Folk Song Index. History: until the 19th century, only adventurers who sought their fortunes as trappers and traders of beaver fur ventured as far west as the Missouri River. Most of these Canadian and American voyageurs in the fur trade era were loners who became friendly with, and sometimes married, Native Americans. Some lyrics from the early 1800s tell the story of a trader who fell in love with the daughter of the Oneida Iroquois pine tree chief, Oscanandon, called Shenandoah. His name means deer antlers. Also called John Shenandoah or John Shenandoah, the chief lived in the central New York State town of Oneida Castle. He was a co-founder of the Oneida Academy, which became Hamilton College in Clinton, New York, and is buried on the campus grounds. The canoe-going fur-trading voyageurs were great singers, and songs were an important part of their culture. Also in the early 19th century, flatboatmen who plied the Missouri River were known for their shanties, including O Shenandoah. Sailors heading down the Mississippi River picked up the song and made it a capstan shanty that they sang while hauling in the anchor. This boatman's song found its way down the Mississippi River to American clipper ships, and thus around the world. The song had become popular as a sea shanty with seafaring sailors by the mid-1800s. A version of the song called Shenandoah was mentioned in Captain Robert Chamblitt Adams' article Sailors' Songs in the April 1876 issue of the New Dominion Monthly. He also included it in his 1879 book On Board the Rocket. Shenandoah was later printed as part of William L. Alden's article Sailor Songs in the July 1882 issue of Harper's New Monthly magazine, and in the 1892 book Songs That Never Die. Alfred Mason Williams' 1895 Studies in Folksong and Popular Poetry called it a good specimen of a bowline chant. In a letter to the UK newspaper The Times, a former sailor who had worked aboard clipper ships carrying wool between Britain and Australia in the 1880s suggested the song had originated as a black American spiritual which developed into a work song. This shanty is obviously of American origin. Shenandoah was more a wool and cotton shanty than a capstan shanty. I have many times heard it sung down the hold on the wool screws by the Sydney waterside workers. And many were full-blood Negroes, who undoubtedly brought these shanties off the cotton ships. With regard to the words, these vary according to the taste of the shanty man in the first and third line of each verse, there being no effort called for on these two lines, but the second and fourth lines were always the same, these being the rhythm lines on which the weight was used. When I was in the wool trade in the 80s, in both the Tweed and Cutty South this shanty was daily used on the wool screws. Lyrics: since Shenandoah was a riverman's and then sailor's song and went through numerous changes and versions over the years and centuries, there are no set lyrics. Modern lyrics are usually some variation of the following. Earlier versions lyrics from prior to 1860. As given in Sea Songs and Shanties, collected by W. B. Wall, Master Mariner were reported as follows. A Mr. J. E. Laidlaw of San Francisco reported hearing a version sung by a black Barbadian sailor aboard the Glasgow ship Harland in 1894, lyrics to O Shenandoah as sung by Tennessee Ernie Ford. Modern usage: the song is popular in local organizations such as Shenandoah University, Washington and Lee University and the Virginia Military Institute. In 2006 Shenandoah was proposed as the interim state song for Virginia, with updated lyrics. The proposal was contentious because the standard folk song refers to the Missouri River and never specifically mentions Virginia and, in many versions of the song, the name Shenandoah refers to an Indian chief, not the Shenandoah Valley or Shenandoah River which lie almost entirely in Virginia. In 2015, Our Great Virginia, which uses the melody of Shenandoah, was designated by the Virginia legislature as the official traditional state song of Virginia. It features in the soundtrack of the 1965 movie, Shenandoah, starring Jimmy Stewart, and is also heard as a part of a medley in the 1962 film How the West Was Won. Members of the Western Writers of America chose it as one of the top 100 Western songs of all time. Various arrangements by Percy Grainger have been recorded by John Shirley Quirk and other classically trained singers. A Song of the Waters, Variations on the folk song Shenandoah is a classical composition by James Cone. Selected notable recordings: Heather Alexander on Arms of the Sea, Dave Alvin on Public Domain, Songs from the Wild Land, Harry Belafonte on a 1952 single and on Belafonte at Carnegie Hall, David Berkeley on Some Kind of Cure, Glenn Campbell on The Artistry of Glenn Campbell and the Essential Glenn Campbell Volume 1, Celtic Woman on Celtic Woman, A New Journey, Chanticleer on Out of This World and Chanticleer, A Portrait, Liam Clancy, On the Wheels of Life, Paul Clayton on Whaling and Sailing Songs from the Days of Moby Dick, The Corrs on Flower of Scotland, Bing Crosby on How the West Was Won, David Daniels on A Quiet Thing, Connie Dover on Somebody, Bob Dylan on Down in the Groove, Fisherman's Friends on Port Isaac's Fisherman's Friends, Tennessee Ernie Ford on Shenandoah and the Folk Album, Sergio Franchi on Live at the Coconut Grove, Jerry Garcia and David Grisman on Not for Kids Only, Judy Garland on That Old Feeling, Classic Ballads from the Judy Garland Show, Nathan Goon on American Anthem, Ilo Guthrie on Son of the Wind, R.W. Hampton on Born to be a Cowboy, Thomas Hampson on Song of America, Harvard Glee Club on multiple recordings. Arrangements by Archibald T. Davison and Jameson Marvin, Michael Holiday on High. The Kelly Family on Honest Workers, The King's Singers on The King's Singers, original debut recording, The Kingston Trio as Across the Wide Missouri on Here We Go Again. Roger McGuinn on Limited Edition, Michigan State University Children's Choir on America the Beautiful, Songs of Our Heritage, Mormon Tabernacle Choir on multiple recordings including America's Choir, Choral Adagios, Essential Choral Classics. Van Morrison with the Chieftains on The Best of Van Morrison Volume 3, Lenton Price on God Bless America, Jerry Reed on A Good Woman's Love, Men of the Robert Shaw Chorale on Sea Shanties, Paul Robeson on multiple recordings including Ballads for Americans, The Essential Paul Robeson, Spirituals, Folk Songs and Hymns, Pete Seeger on American Favorite Ballads, Volume 1, Bruce Springsteen and the Seeger Sessions Band on We Shall Overcome, The Seeger Sessions, Joe Stafford on American Folk Songs, The Statler Brothers on Big Country Hits, Bryn Terfel on A Song in My Heart, Haley Westenra on Celtic Treasure. Tom Waits with Keith Richards on Son of Rogues Gallery, Pirate Ballads, Sea Songs and Shanties. References. External links, 1921 version, from the Shanty Book, lyrics from Capstan Bars published by David Bone, lyrics from the Book of Navy's Songs with MIDI, lyrics on Friends Across America.